New Year. I am going to be making some carnitas. Today is January the 6th and it's a celebrated day of Dia de Roscas and Raya de Roscas, where you celebrate by eating a delicious, beautiful bread that has the little baby Jesus inside the roscas, and it's so delicious, and you cut it, and the tradition is that you whoever gets the little baby Jesus then supplies the tamales and atole. It comes from Spain. It's traditionally celebrated in Mexico, and so I went ahead and I got one, and hopefully my neighbors will celebrate it with me. And since they reminded me how to celebrate it, so what I'm going to, they're really delicious. They're kind of pricey, but it's so delicious and they're fun. You get a group of people, you cut it up, and Mama used to tell me the one that in her community where she lived most of her life, she basically said that that you whoever gets the baby Jesus has to buy the Rosca de Reyes for the next year, for the next coming year. So, and there's a story behind it. Basically, the three wise men that came to visit, and so they brought gifts when Christ was born, and from there the tradition took off in that. And I think every the colors do represent, each color on the roscas represent something, and I know just a little bit about it, so enough to celebrate it and enjoy the tradition. So today, with that, I thought, why not, it's Sunday, it's the 6th, let's make some carnitas. So first, let's wash our hands. I think that's important to wash your hands. We'll start off with this new year, celebrating it with Rosca de Reyes, which is a good thing to celebrate, and why not? So what I'm going to do is basically be cutting this pork shoulder, and it has the bone in it, and usually I'll put all this stuff on a separate, for cross-contamination. You got to be careful with that, but it's all going in the same pan, so I'm going to go ahead and use it in the same, and usually they'll be in separate containers, but like I said, it's all going to be put in the same pot. So I got my deboner here, and my knife, my special knife, where you just basically cut your pork, and I just cube it, and you can cube it, just slice it as thin as you can. You want to keep some of that fat in, and that's fine. You can remove it. Sometimes a quicker way to do this is you can put it in a pan, and I used to do that when I was catering. So I just put it in a shallow pan, and I just put a whole bunch of these bone in where it has a lot of the fat, or you can use the pork butt, and I would basically just lay it out in a pan, and then just put it in the oven and let it cook until it was crispy on the outside, and tender on the inside, fork tender on the inside. And that's where you could just put your herbs in it. But traditionally, carnitas are made in a pan or on a grill, and nice and crispy. And you can make a chile verde with this. Goes really well. You make these carnitas, and then if you want to add the sauce, like a chile verde sauce, like a gravy, then you can, and let it simmer after you cook them. So that's how I used to make my chile verde. Just start it off with carnitas, and then add the chile verde sauce, or you could cheat and put it in the oven, but it's not going to give you each individual bite that's crispy on the outside. So, and then usually you use lard to fry the pieces of the pork. And but I'm not going to be using lard. I'm just going to be using just regular canola oil, which is fine. I'm going to use a little bit of canola oil, and you can use whatever oil you want. So I happen to use the canola oil. Oops. Turn that on. Make sure it's hot. I had it heated up earlier, but there it is. There's a sizzle. So I turned it on so I wouldn't. Be careful with your heat and working in the kitchen. And so I'm cutting them up into small pieces because I want them to cook evenly and I want them to cook fast. And it's really important that you get a nice piece of pork. And you can always tell when the pork has been raised a certain way. My mother on the ranch, when my grandparents lived on the ranch, they used to castrate their pigs so that the testosterone wouldn't be eliminated into the meat. Or wouldn't flow into the meat. So, okay, and like any meat, I'm sure there's always going to be a little bit of that, but this is so delicious. You can serve this with corn tortillas and refried beans, and or flour tortillas, and like I said, salsa, your salsa, or you can just serve it over a arugula salad. That's what I plan on doing. And just enjoy it. With a nice vinaigrette, like a lemon vinaigrette. That's yummy. Okay. Put this aside. It's starting to sizzle. You want to take your salt. This is Himalayan salt. You can use sea salt. You can use kosher salt, fleur de sal, any kind of salt. There's all tons of smoked salt, truffle salt, whatever your palate desires. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this since this is a hot thing these days. Some salt in there. And then use some pepper. Put some pepper. Mom used to always put pepper in there. And then I'm going to let that, put that on high heat. Go ahead and add just a little bit more, just a little bit. Take some of this off of the bone. And since I already started it, I'm going to cut them even smaller, which is fine. That way I make sure that they're all cooking at the same time. Usually you cut them at the same size, but if you're doing it this way, this is okay to add some more, but make sure that it's smaller so that it'll catch up and cook with the rest of the meats. Okay. Let's wash my hands. little bit more. Yeah, I've been having a craving for carnitas. Usually around this time of year, I'm in Mexico eating carnitas with my primas. So, but I'm here and they're there, so I said, why not bring the tradition into my kitchens, right? Okay, so I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to squeeze. I know this sounds weird and crazy, but I'm going to squeeze some orange in there. Yeah, I'm just going to give it a nice marinate. And the oranges are in season right now. And it's going to give it a little bit of sweetness. Squeeze a little bit of orange. You can also squeeze some orange on your salmon when you're cooking it. And that gives it a whole different flavor. I of course like the lemon. You can also squeeze some lemon into it. And see, basically what that salt is doing is bringing out all the fluids. And to make a really good carnita, you wait until the meat is, the fluids have completely evaporated. That means the salt's going to pull out all the fluids out of the meat. It's also going to flavor it. And it's going to basically pull it out. And you can salt this pork before you add it in. As you saw that I salted it while it was in the pan. But you can easily salt it when it's out of the pan, which is even better because it'll begin, the salt process will begin to excrete all the fluids out when you are salting it outside the pan, and just let it sit there, and then it'll just kind of give it, it'll be faster when you, this might take a little bit more time, but that's okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and cover it just so it can pull in. This carnitas are not like your typical pork where you leave it at a certain, you want it completely cook it until all the fluids are gone, and it's nice and crunchy and it starts to sizzle and you see the fats of the meat coming through. So in the meantime, I'm going to add a little bit of bell pepper to that because I just want some bell pepper to it, and some onions. I'm just going to kind of kick it up a little bit here. And like I said, I'm using the this is, I wouldn't suggest you do that if you're in a professional kitchen. You should use a whole different board here. But since it's all going in there, and I'm going to wait until, and this is like my version, I'm going to wait until the meat is cooked down and before I add these in. Or you can add them right as you're cooking them. And it's just, well, you're going to have, if you wait, you're going to have the crunchier bits and pieces of the veggies, rather than if you put them in the beginning, then they're going to disintegrate a little bit. So, and it's up to you, it's your preference. And you can put these in some tacos. Yeah. Can't wait to have my version of carnitas. Put a little bit more onion in there. A lot of veggies in there. And if you don't want to make them this way, that's fine. If you want to use the lard, that's absolutely fine as well. Okay. That should be See, it's got nothing, it's got a lot in there. The meat is actually pretty much cooked. Mmm. Delicious. Make sure you add plenty of salt. Okay, and I have some garlic here that I'm also going to add into this, my carnitas. Yeah. And it usually takes about a good, I would say about a good half hour to cook. Okay. I'll go ahead and add my veggies in there. Like I said, normally they would be served without all the veggies, but this is my version. I'm almost tempted to add my chile verde. But I'm going to cook this until all the fluids are completely evaporated. I add a little bit more orange. It just sweetens it up. Now when you put them in the oven, you'll be seasoning it up and then you'll be adding the orange. I would add your seasonings the night before if you're going to put it in the oven or on the grill and let it marinate overnight.